I know.
It all runs together sometimes, Clinton.
Yes, it does.
Am I pretty well the last one, Kayla? Looks like I probably am.
So I think we're ready to start whenever you're ready, Dean. It's up to you.
That was a nice way to put it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I want to say thank you again, everyone, for joining in. And our associate Cody Witt just had his first child, so he's not going to be able to join us. But if you see him or talk to him, tell him congratulations. Wish him all the luck in the world. But anyway, what we have for today is we have a deliverable due on the 15th. And this group, I think, has gone a long way towards identifying some of these issues, but I wanted to work today and work especially with Clinton, who has a lot of real world experience with composting and that sort of thing, to just kind of talk about, what we need to do for that first deliverable. And again, we've got a lot of it done. But what I would like to start out, excuse me, is just read real quick the timeline, and this is included in that information packet that we sent out, is to begin to gather information such as why is it an issue, to what extent is it an issue, and if it is a national problem, how does Nevada contribute? What are the sources of the problem, and what are the circumstances of the opportunity? So just kind of maybe rehashing a little bit what we've discussed in our first meeting is certainly, it is an issue. It is a resource that has some beneficial reuse, I think, as Clinton and Cody can certainly attest to, and we can all really attest to for that matter. And, on the downside, organics in the landfill lead to greenhouse gas generation and a lot of other issues that way. And we spend a lot of time and money looking at, methane emissions and this, that, and everything else for something that has a very, very high value if used properly. Mm-hmm. But what I would like to do is maybe, Clinton, if you could go through with the group and maybe start discussing, and let's see, we can't make up a table of, issues, constraints, and opportunities. And I think that, maybe we can kind of start from there and get some of these down. You guys did a great job, I think, of coming up with some of them. As you saw in that one handout, you had the gentleman that's co-owner of the Full Circle Composting driving around in a tricycle with a composting wagon in the back. Whether that's feasible or not, I'm not sure. It was a pretty darn cool picture, but as you guys brought up yesterday, I mean, collection and how do you deal with the organics, especially the food waste, is certainly problematic. But Clinton, if you don't mind, kind of frame it however you want to frame it, and let's start kind of brainstorming some ideas, if you don't mind.
You bet. Thanks, Dean. So I'm no expert in composting. I would leave that to Cody. But I would consider myself an expert in the food scrap diversion part, especially feeding to animals. So, but as everybody knows, Cody does have a branch down here with the Terra Firma, and we do work with them all that we can. One of the issues, if you want to start with that, with composting with Terra Firma is there's very little tolerance for contamination, and it is only green waste. They do not want any food waste. So any green waste we take to them has to be like 99% pure. If there's any contamination, such as glass or metal, it's just automatically rejected. And that incurs more costs because now we have to skip load it back into the container and then take it to landfill, and our customers aren't very happy. So there's a lot of opportunities here in Vegas with capturing more of that green waste. But one of my responses in that survey was, what is the obstacle? And it's really it comes down to cost and convenience. People just will not divert it. The majority of people will not divert it if it's not convenient or if it costs them more than disposal. So that's why it's headed to the landfill. I mean, you get a lot of people that want to do the right thing, and they are willing to pay more and go out of their way, but they're definitely in the minority. So I don't know. Did you want to talk more about compost or a little more about food scrap conversion? Or?
Yeah, I mean, Clinton, maybe if you could describe a little bit in the manner that you guys collect everything from how do you get the contracts from the people you deal with, how the business operates, how the, kind of money changes hands, how everyone, wins in your, in your world, and to the extent of which maybe we can duplicate it on a larger scale in other locations.
Okay, well, very good. So as the main customer for Combs Brothers is the hotels and casinos. They are large generators of all kinds of waste. And the way we've been able to model our business is by saving them money. That's the pure simple fact of it. In fact, right now we're having new challenges with the labor costs because of minimum wage increasing every year. It's becoming more and more challenging for us to justify our services to the casinos. It's just a diminishing value that we can demonstrate. So unless the customer has a very aggressive sustainability program, like one of our biggest customers has the best sustainability program is the Venetian Casinos. It's one of the largest casinos in the world, over 7,000 rooms. They've made it a priority in their sustainability program to do everything they can to divert waste from the landfill. So, but they're more of they're not our regular customer. The regular customer really is bottom line. What can we save them? And
Okay.
we've been able to do that. But if we're looking for more residential or restaurants or what am I trying to say there? We just got to be able to show that it's a savings. I mean, saving the environment is not saving money is trumped by saving the environment. Or the
Yeah.
other way around.
No, so we're going to have to show these businesses value, or try to demonstrate. I mean, if it gets to the point where everyone has a third trash bin out there for yard waste, it's going to be something that we're going to have to demonstrate the benefit to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Clinton, how did you originally get the contract from? Because I would imagine all these hotel casinos originally had a contract with Republic Services.
Yep.
And then how did that contract vehicle work that you were able to obtain?
Yeah, it's been quite an evolution. Our family's been in it over 50 years, like I've mentioned in the past. But my dad first came here just to collect the food from the casinos to raise his pigs, because they knew that the tourists were not going to take it home with them on the plane or in the car. So there's a huge opportunity. So and the refuse company at the time, Silver State Disposal, needed someone to take that wet food waste because they didn't have a container to hold those liquids.
Okay.
Like they do today. Today they have leak-proof compactors. You can throw whatever you want in there, and they'll haul it up to the landfill and bury it. But before the leak-proof compactor, if you threw a whole bunch of food in that box, it would just leak out and plug up the drains, cause a mess, all birds and vermin. So the trash company at the time needed us, and so it worked out to start with. And then when the environmental movement came around in the 80s, the hotel said, well, heck, why not put a baler out there and put some labor out there and, cut our disposal costs by taking the food and the cardboard. So we saved them money. And then we started sorting the waste and pulling out their assets. So so that's the triad of our business is reduce their disposal costs, recycle their waste, and keep the area clean and return their assets. So, and that's how we make it work. But they're
Okay.
not doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
So, and then if I could ask you, Jennifer, and thank you very much for providing that information that we included in that packet. But so you got students, you have faculty, certainly there's there's a value in diverting the organics and composting, but how do you demonstrate that value to your, they're not really customers, but the students and the faculty to convince people that this is something that they need to be doing, if you don't mind taking a little bit and talking about that?
Yeah. Well, we're completely different. We're a nonprofit organization who is really striving to change the culture. And so our thought is, so we have a garden. So, if you have any place with a garden, if anybody's interested in growing food, they're going to be a little more interested in composting. So as Clinton was talking, I was wondering, there's about 3 or 4 nonprofit agencies in the city who manage personal and public gardens. I wonder if tapping into their needs would even begin to address, we may have so much more compost in this city than they would ever need. Maybe it wouldn't matter,
Right.
But it'd be kind of fun to at least do those back of the envelope calculations. But yeah, no, our entire sell is that this is what we should be doing to improve, not only improve our garden, but just as good citizens on the earth. So that's not really a hard sell. I will tell you that almost every single one of our undergraduates have some connection to gardening at their home, through their family. It's really amazing. I don't meet a student who doesn't tell me that their grandmother grows tomatoes in the backyard or something like that around here. So we just, it's
Right.
a pretty easy sell in terms of why we should do it, in terms of not wasting, so landfill diversion, and the need to be a good citizen, have sustainable methods. And then for those who do, we actually have a lot of students who do care about fresh fruit and vegetables, and they love it that we send it to our little Scorpion Cafe on campus, and they're eating those vegetables. That makes, they
Yeah.
love it, it's, farm to table, literally, 500 feet. So they value that. Of course, most of our students are lower income students, and so if that was raising the cost of their food, they might not like it as much. It's not, it's actually lowering it because we're subsidizing some of what the cafe needs to buy. So
Right.
it gets a lot of positive press on our campus, but it is a small operation right now. So we're not going to impress anybody with the metric tons of landfill diversion that we're contributing. But maybe we could. And you all probably know Tara Pike at UNLV. She's been working for years and years on their culture of sustainability. She's tried to start a garden program over there. The one good thing about these academic institutions is that if you teach a small group of people about something, that filters out into the community. And I don't know how many times I've had a student tell me that they do something differently at their house now because of something they learned from either me or another faculty member or through a class. And so there is some benefit, some kind of amplification benefit when you're working at an academic institution. The people that go to college and universities just care a little bit more about at least learning about that kind of stuff. I don't know if they would pay for it necessarily.
Right. Yeah, that's a big step.
Because we're not asking them to pay for anything right now. This is all free labor for us. So, and that's another good thing about universities and colleges is the free labor could be there in theory. It's because students they'll volunteer for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty. I know that one anaerobic digester project that we proposed on. We were going to reach out to Western Nevada College and the high school there in Carson City again to try to tap into some of that very conscientious free labor to help us
That's right.
do some things. Well, and then as you said, you got to start out with the kind of a small group of dedicated folks, and hopefully it kind of grows from there, as they infiltrate there where they go to school and all that. So Clinton, how do you divide up the material that goes to the feed for the animals and the amount that goes to composting, or how arduous a deal is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Combs Brothers is basically a labor company where we provide the labor to do that to the casino on their property. So we're actually on their dock, managing their dock, keeping it clean, sorting out the recyclables. So we're in essence directing where that waste goes. We are the last stand between the hotel people throwing it in their trash can and us putting it in the refuse compactor to be going to the landfill. So anything we can pull out is really on us. And that's what we really strive to do, is divert as much material away from that refuse compactor as possible. So there's a lot of leeway with us and our crew out there. We kind of call them a mining crew because they're out there mining refuse waste. So we can take as much or as little as we can. But I mean, so it's our people. So we can take it step by step. I mean, it's pretty much cardboard's the biggest volume, not by weight, but by volume, that we could pull from the trash. And that's easy. We bale it, done. Food scrap is your next highest volume, but it's super heavy and really difficult to manage. So it takes either a team of people downstream, our people, or the hotel can do it upstream. They can have their people separated upstream. So we encourage upstream all we can. Very few customers can handle that or have the resources to do that. So
Right.
So therefore they got to rely on us to do it. But sometimes they don't care. They don't want to have it separated. They just let it go to the landfill because they don't want to have to pay for, number one, the labor to separate it, and number two, the cost of recycling it, because we do charge for that service.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it goes. And then on top of it, and then you got glass that we separate, and then plastics, aluminum, all that stuff. If we're really on top of it and the hotel is really supportive, we can reach about 50% diversion currently of total solid waste stream. So, does that answer the question? Is that kind of?
Yeah. I mean, just as far as how that works, I've been to several big facilities over in California where they got a huge 200 square foot building with conveyors going all over the place, and diverting all this stuff into 9 different materials. At the end of the day, I don't think they have a market for 9 different materials. I mean, that's a big thing also, because after you separate everything out, is there necessarily a market for all of that, or is that part of what we need to figure out how to do too, is where the market's going to be for these diverted?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't separate it unless there's a market for it, basically. And some of those markets doesn't mean that you're going to get a rebate. That means you can sustainably divert it, and you have to pay for that diversion. So, like the PPE, that was a big thing over at Venetian again. They're kind of leading edge, and when it comes to sustainability, they wanted to take all the masks and the gloves and all that PPE, personal protective equipment, and recycle it. So that's what we did. We collected it downstream. They collected it upstream. We consolidated it into Gaylords and shipped it back east. And they made like park benches and parking bumpers and stuff like that.
Kind of like Trex or something like that.
But it was tremendously expensive. I mean, they got a lot of media attention out of it, and I think that's how they justified the expense. But it was very costly. So.
Yeah. Now, Darren, if I could ask you a question, especially knowing, I think sometimes in Nevada we kind of have, we got Waste Management up here in Reno and Carson City, and then we have Republic, but we have a whole lot of rural areas, and aren't those folks very sensitive to anything having to do with? I mean, everyone's sensitive to cost, but certainly a lot of the rural landfills, they don't have the capacity to absorb really any additional cost or handling, or even you had, recommended someone being out there part-time to help separate out organic waste. They probably don't have the capability of doing that, do they?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Dean. I think, did you ask me? I think you asked that question to me.
Yes.
Yeah, that the rurals are obviously have a lot of challenges outside of the urban areas, and that's just one of them. But I think Clinton mentioned it, y'all mentioned it, that cost is the number one generally, but manpower for the rurals is very difficult.
Yeah. No, they have a tough road to hoe, you know, when it comes to whether it be, you know, just disposal and especially during the pandemic and COVID and shutting down. And I know that there's been, you know, issues that we had to deal with out at the Lander County landfill, for instance, and it's just difficult. And to get someone trained and then they leave 3 months later, or maybe they don't even last 3 months, you know, once you train on proper operations. And it is that's certainly a difficult thing. So what
Hey, Dean.
what, yeah.
Dean, this is Wes Rubio over here in Washoe County. I think one of the other things that we'd have to be careful of, especially with, you know, when we're talking about rules and other areas, is something that you guys, or that we all touched on earlier in the conversation, which was the market and what's available. The more streams that you create in the rural area, the more they're going to have to figure out also how to ship it back out. And so you'd be creating a storage and facility issue with some of the rurals. They may want to recycle or repurpose or even create some side streams, but they may not have the facilities there to hold it and or get it back out if it's not a commodity that can be used locally at that point in time. So it kind of comes back to what Clinton said. If there's not a market, we don't use it, we don't separate for it, and we'd only potentially increase the cost for some of the smaller regional areas where they'd have to send it away for a market that would actually utilize it. So just doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that we have to balance those ideas between the areas and regions where, you know, it's obviously a little easier in some of the more metro areas because we have greater infrastructure for use.
Yeah. Now, Wes, it was, I guess it's probably 5 or 6 years ago. We were working with Waste Management at some point in time. They had actually contemplated a separate area to dispose of, you know, yard waste, that sort of thing. I think Carson City may still do that to some degree. Do you know, in your dealings with Waste Management, has there been any movement or interest or appetite shown by them at all towards doing something with that? Or they, again, it's just a cost thing and they're just going to landfill it and
well,
go that.
Hey, you know, the best thing about that question is Kendra's on in this meeting. I'm gonna punt that right on over.
No, good job, Wes.
Hi.
Kendra, you're up.
I am the contract manager for Waste Management, and it's a little bit trickier than just to say it's a cost thing. We operate at the will of the municipality. They have to give us permission to do things. And so they have to sell that to the public because there is a cost that goes with that. So it may not be a big cost investment, but there is that voter component of whether or not they want to do it. So I think in the Reno area, we're getting closer and closer to that appetite where a growing number of people are willing to pay a couple of dollars extra a month to have that opportunity. But as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, that can be very different. And so we can't offer it piecemeal. We have to offer it wholesale.
Yeah. No, and that's absolutely right. And then plus you guys, I mean, your revenue is pretty well, you know, based on tipping fees. So if you divert organics, how does that work? Because you're taking away some of your tipping fees, and plus you're gonna, I mean, at some point in time, cut down on your landfill gas generation for that energy facility you have out there. I mean, that's far in the future, of course, but.
So again, it's a really complicated situation. We work with RT Donovan, or we have worked with RT Donovan to do organics for the casinos here in the Reno area. Something happened with RT Donovan during the pandemic where they just stopped taking material. We also have a contract with Full Circle in Carson City, which they have the capacity for much green waste, but they don't have very much capacity for food waste. And so we have had internal conversations about creating our own windrows out at the Lockwood property, because we have a lot of property out there where we could do it. But again, that would require a new contract, because we're a big enough company, we can get the capital to get that started. But we're not going to invest all of that capital if we can't get our municipal partners on board with that.
Okay, so it's a lot more than just having a good idea. I mean, there's a lot of things involved and a lot of people involved, and probably amending that contract's probably not an easy thing either.
Right.
I'm all for it. I will sign a new contract anyway.
So, Dean,
it can be done. It's just a regional agreement. So, sure, the regions all agree, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dean,
yes, Clinton.
hey, I just, I think the biggest problem we have in Southern Nevada with diverting more organic waste or any kind of waste is that the cost of disposal is so much cheaper here than in most parts of the country.
Right, you're right.
If you hit people in the pocketbook, they're going to find a different way to go with it. I think that'd be the best thing to happen down here is if disposal rates went up. We'd find out a lot more diversion. I mean, but it's funny the way it's working here in Vegas is the hotels get charged such an exorbitant amount for their disposal costs, which helps us, but it subsidizes the residential, and so that's why we're not getting good participation rates in residential for diversion. Part of the reason.
So then, with with that, what do you think as far as who, when we're talking about our opportunities? We've discussed some of the, some of these initial problems, but as far as opportunities, some of it's going to be realistic, without, pulling a California and just saying, okay, we're going to mandate no more organics and you guys figure it out. Yeah. Which probably isn't the best thing in the world to do, but within our corporate capabilities, kind of understanding of the project, what do you think some reasonable opportunities might be? I mean, is it something such as Jennifer's done down in College of Southern Nevada, or what we're going to be trying to do up in Carson City, taking the food waste from 9 restaurants and seeing what we can do with it in an anaerobic digester? Or is there something maybe a step beyond that? Or, I just open that up to the group, but especially, Clinton, you in Southern Nevada, what do you think something that might be an achievable opportunity?
In Southern Nevada?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're exploring that now with the Clark County School District.
Okay.
There's a tremendous amount of food waste, and it's interesting because it's a lot of packaged material, a lot of packaged food waste as well. But our system will depackage that food and separate the trash from the organic food material. So we're excited about that opportunity.
Oh wow, that'd be great.
Yeah. What else? There's I think a lot of it is just people are just still figuring out that we're an option. like restaurants and food prep kitchens and manufacturers. They're just slowly figuring out that there is an option versus disposal. So those are opportunities.
Cool. No, I think that, you know, this is a difficult part, you know, where everyone has a great idea and it's going to do this and do that, but it's just considering all the other bits and pieces to everything, and you know what's reasonably gonna work. But as you said, I think that's great, Cato, that we have the Education and Outreach Committee, you know, to kind of work with all of these groups, because that's such a big, huge, important part of it. A big, important part. And you know, I think also the one benefit of not starting with the schools, but maybe, you know, focusing on that educational component, whether it be higher education, K through 12, is just really increasing the, you know, really changing attitudes of those kids. I mean, you know, you're not going to see it for 20 years down the road or whatever, but, you know, certainly changing attitudes is a big deal.
And changing behaviors, because the idea is that the kids are going to do the separation in the class, or not. Well, it is in the classroom, because that's where they're eating nowadays, is in the classroom. They
Right.
don't know how to eat cafeteria. So yeah, it literally does change their behaviors when they're separating the food. Yeah.
Okay.
But, and I was just going to say, you know, it's a big ship to turn, these behaviors and people's thoughts. But it is changing. We've seen it with our customers. They're now willing to pay for these services, even though it's cheaper to dispose of. But like I said, it's not the masses yet.
Yeah. Now, and with Clark County School District, do they currently have, you know, community gardens at each of the schools, or is that something? I mean, that's something that they try to do up here in Washoe County, and it got a little. I'm not sure it was very successsul, but
Yeah,
is that something in Clark County?
It's similar here. There's a company called Garden Farms, and they'll go in and set up the plots, the above ground gardens, and work with, and they have their own compost. I think they get some compost from Terra Firma, and so it's very, it's far and few between, but it is happening.
Great.
Yeah, there are actually about 175 school gardens in the Las Vegas area, but a lot of them go they're not well attended, not all of them, because again, even if you're paying Garden Farms or Green Our Planet to help, they only really come and help once a week, you know, and it falls back to the faculty, staff, and students at the institution to really do the free work of really maintaining these systems,
right,
like what Colin's talk about. So, you know, some administrative level, higher level organic waste management in CCSD and in the higher institution colleges and universities might be useful if we can, you know, somehow fund people who get to spend their own time figuring out how to help these academic institutions do this work on their campus. That could be a start as well, because you can tell them how to garden and you can get them to compost, but sometimes other priorities fall in line and things fall through the cracks.
Well, and then
right.
The summer comes along too, right? And school's out, so.
Yeah. Now, does anyone on this call know? Do they have any program for the prisons in the state? Or if you heard of any? Anyway, that was a big initiative they had over in California, because a lot of them have sponsored gardens within their prisons and trying to make compost from that.
Dean, the only experience I've had was out here at what do they call it? Indian Springs Prison, where we collected
okay,
fish, but nothing compost wise.
Okay.
But we don't do that any longer. They just aren't participating at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing we were thinking of there is that you have a lot of, kind of like schools, you have a lot of students, but you have a lot of prisoners.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the correct word. And, you know, they, you would think that, you know, that labor force of doing some diversion and some separation would be.
You would think, yes. Oh, and if you're still on opportunities, it's the hospitals. We're going to be starting service to UMC down here very soon. So for food diversion.
Now, how do you set up that program? You talk to the hospital. They do their own upstream separation for you.
Correct. Yeah,
And
so it's
then-
their initiative. They get their staff to do the separation, and then we pick up to 3 times a week.
And then what's the benefit in it for them? Is it a community-based, attaboy, or is it monetary?
It's typically monetary. That's where it starts. But in this case, I think they're just wanting to be more sustainable. They want to report. They've got sustainability goals they want to reach, and so food is a good way to do that because it's so heavy. It adds tonnage.
That's right.
Mhm.
Maybe what we can do in a little bit of time, and I appreciate, I think we try to keep these calls about half an hour, but appreciate everyone's time. Maybe if we could just kind of go around and, have everyone kind of comment if there's any problems that haven't been discussed that you would like to discuss, or any opportunities that you might think of. And again, I think that it's kind of boiling down to, we're looking more at community size, whether it be schools or what have you, smaller scale community size opportunities that might be our first, easy successes, as far as, Jennifer's program down there. She's got a garden. Working through the issues, but certainly can show a lot of, progress and, and success, and, maybe something, similar to that of, might be apparent in places where you live or work or what have you. So, if I can start with John Reuter. All right, John. Anything you can think?
I was on mute there. Sorry.
You get a bit of feedback, John. All right.
This one. That one better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. No, I don't have anything to add at this time, but we have 2 other people, Will and Corey, are on from our organization that might be able to contribute something.
Okay. Well, Will and Corey, feel free to jump in and let us know what you think.
Yeah, I'll jump right in. I had a couple things that came to mind, mostly to add. Quick introduction. My name's Will Piers. I'm with the Greenhouse Project in Carson City. I'm not sure how aware y'all are. We're starting a pretty small compost operation.
Oh, wow.
A site that's just under 2 acres, and we're going to be using half of that, or a little over half of that, for composting, targeting food waste and mixed arborist products, food waste from the district, pre-consumer to start with. That was actually a point of clarification. I was wondering, when you're talking about food waste, Clinton, I assume you're talking about pre and post-consumer food waste?
Yeah, that's correct, Will. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're looking at just pre-consumer at this point. We have in our permit post-consumer potentially down the road, but we're aware of the challenges with separation. So
and contamination, yeah.
Yeah, really curious about more details on what y'all do with or suggest with upstream separation and whatnot. The only things I really wanted to add, just in the conversations talking about markets for the compost, even including the rural areas and some of those things. One point or an area we may be able to leverage, especially talking about maybe municipalities, if not taking on some of this, at least working with waste management to make it happen. I know that some of Washoe County's parks, University of Nevada, Reno. We've got some locations, public locations in Carson City that have shifted to chemical-free turf management and park management. And so that relates pretty much directly to, at least in Full Circle's mind, and they've had great success, you know, a switch to compost instead of fertilizers. So, you know, just a thought process to leverage there. And again, with talking about the school gardens, what Jennifer's program is doing, internalizing that stuff. And maybe that's a great opportunity to start hiring people wherever budget dictates, is to start working that composting, you know, in some degrees, you know, if the school or this entity compost, keep it internal. And if they have the garden, that's the full circle right there. So, yeah, just a couple little thoughts on that. I'm glad to join. I'm sorry I missed the meetings in the past. Look forward to staying in tune with y'all.
No, you know, and Will, I think those kind of, you know, those kind of local, you know, kind of grassroots, boots on the ground initiative, I think is eventually what's gonna, you know, what's gonna change things and get things going. And I think, you know, you generate a lot of goodwill, you know, from the community. Whereas again, just coming down with the legislation that says, you know, no more, you know, food or green waste in the landfill, and everyone kind of resents that. They resent the extra $15 a month they have to pay. They don't understand what they're paying for, and I think that's kind of not going to win very well. Corey, did you have anything, Corey? Was Corey on the line?
Thank you for asking. I don't know if I have anything I can add. Just that. Thanks, Will, for chiming in on that. That's definitely true. I think we're in a good position because we're not a school entity. We're separate from the school, which gives us the advantage of being able to do things outside of the school year, step in when students aren't available to help out with this stuff. But we really hope that by what we're doing here on the campus of the high school is going to further that conversation with the students. You know, we have environmental science classes that come out, and this is a topic that they talk about, what to do with all of our waste products. So I think, you know, the more we can get the word out to the young people that can be involved and see how the difference that they can make, because it's really just going to be a campaign of teaching people. You know, there's other parts of the country where it's become more of the norm for food waste to be diverted. So I hope that we can be a part of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to how this group this moves forward.
Well, with all your guys' help, I think that's you know, that's part of it. I can't say enough good things to NDEP for coming up with all this. You guys did it. I mean, I think this is an incredible thing, and really, and I think it's really going to change things. Kendra, do you have anything else to add?
Not. Thank you.
Well, thanks for your discussion before, and because sometimes I think you forget about, or I forget about, all the different parts and contracts and everything else. So that is good. Good to have an understanding of that. Todd?
Yeah, I would add that, you know, if we're looking at additional legislation or, you know, revising up here in Northern Nevada, the city of Reno's franchise agreements to include green waste and organics, is that, you know, a more holistic approach needs to be looked at in terms of not only residential, but also commercial business. Because a lot of times when, you know, particularly with recycling, you know, the residential recycling program here in Reno is very successful, but it's not really carried over to the same, you know, sort of stuff with respect to the commercial businesses.
Right.
And so I think, you know, if we start looking at that with respect to waste management and their franchise agreements with the city of Reno, you know, we really need to look at both components, the residential and the commercial sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's actually a big thing with the, you talk about recycling with all the multifamily units going in the city of Reno. I mean, I know I've had some exposure down with the city of Los Angeles, and that was always a huge thing. You could have, you know, recycling for the individual homeowners, but when it came to the apartments, multifamily units, even condos, it became very problematic. So that's a big, that is a big challenge. Thanks, Todd. Wes, I think you were.
Sounds good.
More?
So yeah. So real quick, thank you for bringing up the discussion regarding multifamily for recycling. Clinton was on the call earlier today, and I think a couple other people were as well. We will be discussing that and trying to see what kind of options there are. I've already had discussions with the city of Reno. There's a whole lot of issues that go into trying to work with commercial entities. Dean, as you know, planning is a big one. So we have to, if we're going to make those kind of efforts, we have to coordinate regionally because it will affect everybody's master plan. And then also just like some quick comments. Will, we've been paying attention to what you guys are doing down there in Carson. We're looking forward to seeing how that looks and turns out. But when we're always talking about compost and things like that, you know, one of the challenges that we've had up here is everybody wants to do it, but like Clinton said, nobody wants to pay more for it. And one of the other challenges is you can do it on your own residence, you can do it at your own location, but the second you're trying to haul to something, now it requires permitting and oversight. And so those are the little nuances where we have to be careful, you know, getting facilities established that meet those requirements, like what Will's doing and what First Full Circle and, well, Archie Donovan hopefully will come back online at some point. But those are the biggest challenges, right? To make sure that we're meeting the demands and needs of the community. But unfortunately, everybody wants to compost, but nobody wants a compost near them.
Right. That's always the case with anything, pretty much, you know.
Yeah, so it's just a challenge between residential and individual, or I mean residential and commercial. And I think those are the things that, like Clinton's discussed, I think those are all challenges we can overcome. We just have to keep them in line, keep them in focus.
Yeah, absolutely. David Gill, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
I just wanted to touch a little bit on the theme of the bioeconomy. It sounds like we're really focused on the compost aspects of organics, but what I wanted to kind of discuss to see if you guys were going to touch on is, I know you had mentioned anaerobic digestion and, you know, some of the byproducts that come out of it, whether it's biogas, electricity, some of those type of concepts, especially up north. In fact, I just left Reno this week and drove back through the business park. You know, how are we doing electricity for the new developments? How are we doing different things? And a lot of these, the refuse that we get could be fuel for those type of initiatives. But I hear us really focus primarily around compost, which is great. I don't want to take away from or diminish any of it. But are we going to be talking about any of the alternative concepts associated with a bioeconomy with organics?
Yeah, you know, I think so, Dave. What happened is that during our initial, you know, our initial phone call and surveys, I think everyone expressed a big interest in composting. And another thing is we wanted something, I think, that, you know, that we could have an early win on. You know, as you know, getting involved in, well, for instance, I'm doing that anaerobic digester grant through, you know, through US EPA for Carson City, where we're going to take organics from restaurants and build a small scale anaerobic digester. There's a lot involved in it. There's there's the technology, and then once you generate the you know, the composting, do you want to just do composting? Do you want to generate liquid fertilizer? You know, liquid organic fertilizer. You have the, you know, you have the biogas, which you use for electricity. You can use it as renewable natural gas. You know, and at some point in time, you can set up a whole CNG fueling station. And I think that for something like that was not going to be a quick win. I mean, I think something that's included in all of this discussion, and certainly something that, you know, I'm personally working on there in Carson City. But as far as what we can do as a state, I think that, one of the, and we have some very good industry leaders in composting here. So I think that that's probably why the direction of our conversation is towards that, but certainly not to preclude any sort of, anaerobic digestion. And on a personal level, that's kind of where my heart's at a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, there's pyrolysis, there's the combustible type stuff. There's a variety of different ways to kind of look at it, but I think the idea, from my perspective, is to look at waste as something different than waste, because now it could be something that could be generated to, different energy sources, whatever it may be. Compost is a great way to do it. And the other piece, I would say that, I guess the part B to my question too, is it sounds like we're very Northern Nevada focused. I'm based out of Las Vegas. I don't know if any of these initiatives that you're talking about, because it sounds like we're talking a lot with Carson City, Reno, those type of things. Is there a focus, I guess, with the group then in Vegas as we go forward, or is it primarily going to be north?
I think that, in previous calls, we've had a lot of discussion. Well, Clinton's in Las Vegas, and then Will's in Las Vegas also.
Okay.
Baby. So I think we're pretty well, we may be underrepresented in this phone call, but certainly in the future, I think we have a pretty good representation in North and South, which is important because I think there's going to be some different, there's some different issues. And I think the big thing is like Jennifer down at Southern Nevada College, Will with his full circle operation and, working with, then with the Clark County School District. You guys are doing some great things, and I think you're doing things maybe that we haven't started doing up north here. I mean, that's part of this group, is learning what you guys are doing, what you're being successful at, and what things that we can do up here in Northern Nevada to kind of, step up and get things going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, there's tremendous opportunity across the state. Fortunately, we have maybe a little more infrastructure in place here in Southern Nevada with the agriculture or the livestock and with terra firma. There's options, right? But maybe there's not so much in Northern Nevada. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, because I mean, we need serious help with water and energy down here, right? With the issues that we have with lake meat and everything. So that's why if we look at different ways that we could use organics to help with that, that's where my mindset is. But anyways, I don't want to monopolize my piece. You got a lot of other people to go through.
No worries there, David. In fact, if you could, you know what, and I'll send you an email offline.
Okay. It'd be great to catch up with you to hear what you're going through.
Talk about some anaerobic digestion,
Nothing more exciting. Thank you.
You guys are laughing. You never had the top of the digester blow up because you added too many milk solids, and oh man, it's a mess. But anyway,
I've cleaned some big stomachs, Dean, inside the oven.
Right on there, Will. Mark, do you have anything?
I don't think I have really anything to add. This is my first time on the call. I was on vacation the last time we held the call. I think one of the opportunities, and this is probably more for the north than the south, is that home composting diversion opportunity, because anybody that's has a garden, can do their own composting, and it usually is self-supporting within your own household. So I just think that might be a low-hanging fruit. It's certainly a little easier from an educational perspective to manage something like that than having to change, commercial practice. But I think both need to happen. So that's all I got.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, because now you go to Home Depot to buy a composting setup, and I mean, I guess it's still $100 or something like that to get all the plastic things, and then you put the leaves in there, and there's not enough moisture in the air for it to compost. So then you sit there, and a little education's good though, Mark.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 12 years, and I've had the same composting bins I've had for 12 years, so I got to figure it out anyway.
Good. Jennifer, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, although I do compost down here in Southern Nevada very successfully. So, yeah. At my home.
Seeing stuff like that is what we absolutely have to learn from. NDEP, anything that you like, don't like, think we're ridiculous, anything like that?
No, I think you guys have had a wonderful discussion. There's certainly a lot of ideas out there that I've been taking, I think, some really good notes on. So I will send those to Eugene so that way you can kind of whittle and see how you want them to fit into the menu of options structure. But yeah, I think you're right on.
Well, thanks, Kayla.
Hey, Dean, this is Darren. If I may jump in real quick. Yeah, I really appreciate all of you guys working on this project. This is the whole reason we brought these groups together, right? We knew there were some challenges ahead of us. We knew there were some opportunities, more importantly, ahead of us. And it's hard. And you guys are willing to take the step to make a difference in Nevada. And, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. These groups have been long ago, right, taking off and doing their thing. But it hasn't. It's been hard. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not an easy path forward. It's going to be difficult, but we're here to do this together and to figure it out. And, it may take, I don't know, pick a number. It could be a year, 2, 3 years, but we're going to make a difference somewhere along the line. And I would just want to say thank you for everybody coming to the table. We're getting all industries represented, and that's what it's going to do, affect that change. So thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Is there any other last comments or anyone want to say anything? Say whatever you want to, really. Clinton, thank you very much.
Yep, I was just going to say the same. Thanks, everybody.
Very good. With that, I think we're done, Kaylin. If you could send me those notes. So my deliverable to you guys is I'm going to get Kayla's notes. I'm going to put some together to address that milestone number 1 that we started with that I owe Kayla by November 15th. And in the next week, I'd like to get some sent out to you guys for your edits and comments and antidotes or what have you. And you get that back to me and help me get that document to Kayla on time so she doesn't mark me down. I don't want her to reduce my grade. Anyway, I'll try to get that out to you in the next week, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean.
Have a good night.